welcome to another jungle tutorial, and in this one we will be taking a look once again at Kha'Zix, but this time when he uses the Conqueror rune. This is a playstyle that has only gained popularity over the past couple of months, as we've seen a nice increase in some melee champions. You got things like Mundo Jungle running around, essentially giving you that sustained damage, and because you can stack it so quickly with his full combos, it'll give you a bit of spicy true damage as well as healing, and even if that's rather just a simplified overview, it actually has a better win rate than Electrocute currently on this patch. Really is gaining traction, and that's why we have this game here today, which can show you why a lot of you fail when you play Kha'Zix, and also why Conqueror can be so useful for the majority of cases, and basically just adds another thing to him that makes him even more versatile, not that he really needed that. Don't forget to also please like, share, and comment if you do enjoy this video, and of course help us in that final push to 100k subs if you want to see more content like this. And now Conqueror Kha'Zix with fancy effects and more coming up in 15 seconds. And now, of course, you will be seeing the first clears as they go through it. We don't need to talk too much about them as we covered them quite extensively recently. And yes, he is against a Mundo. And in the Qiyana vs Mundo video we did about a month back looking at ganking and farming, a lot of people were just stating that, well, of course Mundo won. He's a tank, he scales, assassins suck into tanks. Well, you know, that's just a really narrow-minded view. It's always about picking your moments and knowing how to teamfight and knowing how to win games. So during the time that Kha'Zix has done his full clear minus the Gromp and then headed to the Scuttle Crab, the Mundo has done every single camp, headed back to base, bought, and is now heading to the bottom lane to get that rubber banded Krug camp. However, our focus is very much on the Kha'Zix, and he tries to go in for that bottom lane gank. Early lane impact is very important. However, the Rise uses one of the most fundamental principles we covered in the So You Want to Be Diamond video. Very important solo queue strategies and how to improve in that video there, but the Rise is immediately TP down to an early skirmish, not afraid to use it to commit, and because the Mundo's there as well, the Alistar actually gets caught out in that 4v1 and he will die. I mean, how many times in a gold game are you going to see a 4v2 in the bot lane at, 3-4 minutes in? Not very often. However, the whole reason we have a jungle position is because laners are greedy and have no idea when to back. Tower platings and shoving that wave are too enticing for them, and they do not think the Kha'Zix will return. He does his Gromp, and then he moves on back down to the bottom lane with the respawned cow. They first get a kill onto the Caitlyn, and then with a little bit of miscommunication, Kha'Zix does die as he tower dives the Blitzcrank. Maybe if they could have juggled one tower shot each, he gets out. However, that's a good 2-kill pickup for the assassin. As we always say on this channel, jungling has an equal opposite reaction. You make a play bottom side, a good jungler will be making a play somewhere else, even if it's just taking your Raptors and Krugs. The sad part about that, as Kha'Zix of course, is that it's the second spawn of both those camps, which is the juicy stuff you really want. As such, when the Mundo does that, you do not let him get away with it. You move to the top lane and you annihilate him, get that experience back. Take the Scuttle Crab, you can get your second red buff and clear your Raptor spawn before going back to base. Now you will notice at this stage, he will do his Wolves afterwards, and he has reached level 6 and will do his Evolve. He has chosen Q. The last time we did a video and the high elo jungler evolved Q, everyone started rampaging about R. That is a very different playstyle, and you have to understand the strengths and weaknesses of that. The Q evolve gives you that dueling potential, faster clears, better objective control, a disturbing amount of damage if you're looking to invade the enemy jungle, but evolving R will give you that map pressure that you really want to make those proactive early ganks, find a lane that you can really snowball hard and keep on going. You have to abuse a shorter R cooldown because you don't have that damage spike from your Q. Now a lot of the high elo junglers that play Kha'Zix and main him, that play Conqueror, like to go that QWR, maybe QRW depending on the game state. This gives you the best teamfight in and out, Conqueror stacking, dueling potential annihilation mode. Now if you don't have any reset opportunities, the E really doesn't make sense either. Obviously, the key thing with Kha'Zix is knowing when to adapt, when to change your style, and as such, I will leave a guide to the official Kha'Zix guide, and you can read all about the evolve paths and which one best suits you, and I just wanted to highlight some of those things about why they go Q, W, and R as their core evolves, even if it was just superficial. And as I was saying that, he went straight to the Ocean Drake, and now you can see the contagiousness of the Fiesta disease. It takes hold of the enemy team, and they just run into the pit trying to win a fight. And you watch how the Kha'Zix just simply cleans up. That Conqueror is stacked very quickly, and any disjointed fights like this where he can focus down a target at a time with that Evolve Q, with that Conqueror fully stacked, even at this stage, because of those early kills, he has that Warrior enchantment already, so his lead is actually quite notable. Now, I will say this before you start wondering if this is going to be a hard snowball Kha'Zix runaway, it really isn't that kind of game. There will be a lot of fighting, and then there will be a very close goal gap right until the very end. However, I'm sure most of you as Kha'Zix players have found yourself a little bit in this situation where you have a lot of kills early, you have Warrior, you're really far ahead, and then you end up losing. So let's see how he translates this into the next phase of the game, and also what doesn't go so well for him. Obviously, the Mundo hasn't had the best game so far. He will have his time. Our Kha'Zix player really doesn't care about that though, and even though Mundo was about to do his blue, the fact that he had to go hold the top lane against the Tryndamere means he gives up that blue, and as he goes back, he's not thinking about what the enemy jungler is doing, and Kha'Zix is easily able to collapse and take him out. You can see how quickly the Conqueror stacks, and how many more autos you need to use against certain champions as an assassin is why this build can be so good. Tryndamere did rotate also, and as we watch Kha'Zix move to the mid lane using his R, you see transitioning an invade as an assassin, especially if you have invis or map scaling, is one of the most vital parts as an assassin. That pressure needs to be unrelenting, and sometimes you'll take the blue and think you did a good job and go back into your jungle, maybe fought directly back to the Herald. Watch your support. If you have a roaming support, I know it won't happen very often in most of your games, but when you do, play off of it, use it to get yourself even more kills and apply even more lane pressure. Now, as he moves up to the Herald after those plays, important to note, as I said, because you're auto-attacking more, because you're looking to be a bit more beefy, that Black Cleaver is very much a vital part of your itemization. A lot of players will go from that lethality item first after the warrior into that Black Cleaver, and if you're against very beefy targets, perhaps some kind of Last Whisper item. And while Duskblade may be that core item, when you're against a Singed, Mundo, Orianna, and a Blitzcrank, perhaps you do go the Hex Drinker into a more later, just like this Kha'Zix is doing, and that's why you see that in his itemization. He will do the Black Cleaver next, and as we see the full fury of the blue team really annoyed at the state of this Kha'Zix, they basically 5-man that Herald pit, they're not letting him get away with it, and sometimes it's best to know when to simply back off. Yes, you will lose the Herald, but you don't want to lose the Herald and give them shutdown gold. There's probably no chance of you getting a kill versus that team comp with that amount of CC and tankiness. Your ADC's in the bottom lane, simply back up, play it safe, go spend your gold. And before our itemization discussion was so rudely interrupted by that fight, just a final note that Edge of Night is a supreme item and so useful when you are playing this style, because if you're playing this style into CC tanky comms, perhaps a Yumu's Ghostblade isn't going to provide the utility you need, then the health and the shield would from Edge of Night. And that's a nice thing about the build as well. You got so much health, you can really survive initial bursts and get around using your ultimate as well. And you can see the effects of that already here. He tries to have a little pick on the mid lane with his support, but the enemy team has CC, they're tanky, and they shove them right off, and now they can use a Herald. So that's a huge swing in the game's momentum that was looking like it was going to be a one-sided affair. So now let's, instead of streaming through it, look at the most notable events that will affect the outcome of the game. So now normally someone would say, well, set traps, get vision, make picks, then take towers. That's simple. The problem is with that enemy team comp, that's not going to be quite so easy. They're going to want to be grouped. They're not going to let you get picks. However, when they do present an opportunity for you to do so, it's important that you actually try and get away with it. And yes, he has evolved W now. The team fighting utility is huge, as well as the fact that you have 90% slow on an isolated target like this Rise means you can chase him down unrelentingly. Obviously at this stage the Mundo and the Blitzcrank have rotated already, but he can keep his 5 stacks on the Conqueror, and you can see how much longer he lives even with just the Phage and the Hex Drinker, and that's something that's very important. He does, however, give the shutdown gold to the Mundo, which is not what you wanted to do, and yes, this is the classical problem with people trying to carry with Kha'Zix versus these types of team comps. You have to make the best of the plays, like in this situation where you can see the Mundos on the bottom lane, tower dive the Rise and pick up that kill, but the game is slowed down to such a point that we can see how it's going to evolve. Grouped skirmishes and team fights. Yes, those wonderful words all assassins love to hear. So in our last Kha'Zix video, it was very much about him getting those E resets on squishy targets, using his full electrocute burst combo on the most important one, and basically cleaning up fights and making light work of all the remnants. These types of games though are very different, and our first example comes a few minutes later, and you see Kha'Zix trying to flank in on the side on the pick that the enemy team is trying to make on his Alistar. You can see the amount of auto attacks needed even on the Blitzcrank at this stage. However, the Singed comes from the side and flips him into the tower, and he dies. Again, he does live longer, way longer than you would if you were building pure lethality. You can see on the edge of the map that Orianna whiffs her ultimate, and when you have an Orianna, the rest of the fight is a wash. Mundo just runs around. You kind of want her to ball you. You can use your invis to go in. That's why an R-Evolve could be kind of useful in this situation, but they're not really setting up those fights very well, and even though he's coming in from the side to take out a target, there's so much follow-up CC and tankiness that it's very difficult for him to actually do what he needs to do. We have another example of this, setting a trap at the red buff because the Caitlyn is obviously going to come and get it, and he can assassinate her in a classical way. However, Mundo shows up, she is intelligent and hugs to the other side, so he gets the red buff, but the Singed has also showed up, and you can see how difficult it is to deal with them. even with his Conqueror and Black Cleaver. He has his executioners, but it's just not enough, and Mundo can just run him down. And that's why your decisions, coupled with your dynamic itemization, are the things that will get you carried. Now, these last two team fights have probably looked kind of familiar to you, because it's you, yes? These two team fights are not what you want to do. Sometimes, like in the last video, you have to show that restraint of just not going in. Just because you are building a bit more tanky, just because you do have Conqueror, doesn't mean you are invincible. It still means you need to pick and fight the right way. This is not how you fight the right way. Yes, the rest of his team is playing appallingly, but all you can do is play around that. You can't dive in head first. So even though we won't see many nice Orianna combos and not brilliant team fighting, this is not a video about team fighting, there will be that one moment in the game where the enemy steps out of line and you can actually execute the type of team fight you're looking for. You will notice that Orianna isn't even in the fight. She's gone, she's dead. The enemy team is using this moment to finally break open the game, thinking, we made the comeback, let's take the Baron, let's run it down mid and end the game. However, this is exactly what you want as Kha'Zix when their focus is shifted onto something else other than you. Whether it's your teammates, whether it's Baron, whether it's the Alistar on the top side zoning the Rise. All he does is he uses his E to reposition himself, then R's to disappear so they lose track of him and they can't CC or do anything about it. And because the Ezreal ult hit the Caitlyn, he flashes and Qs so she's immediately off the map. One carry down, and that's the most important thing. With these kind of comps, the DPS in the backline is the thing that will be your downfall, because yes, you will be CC'd, but you could survive it if there was no damage. So by taking Caitlyn out, now you can use your R again to reposition. You've got 3 meatballs in the middle, and you can easily focus down targets because they're completely split now. Their main carry is gone, Ryze is on the top side, Ezreal's doing his free DPS, just basically the role reversal. Make sure you are throwing in those auto attacks, make sure you are throwing in those Qs. If you have R evolved, make sure you use it again to get the unseen damage threat. And then to clean up, the reason why W is so great, look at that slow on Ryze, easy for Ezreal to pick him off. So much utility and usefulness in team fights. From there, they can take the Baron, go back to base, he can get his last Whisper item. Remember, pick the one that is relevant for you. Remember, he really needed that mortal reminder before the Edge of Night. However, if you're against an Ashe or something like that where you're trying to dive the backline, that Edge of Night will be very useful if she just flash R's immediately in your face. And for those of you who are kind of upset you didn't get to see a full-blown assassination, I present to you Kha'Zix vs Caitlyn, a very short play in one act, and she pushed up too far anyway, and because of that she has no choice in her outcome. Now you have 5 stacks of Conqueror from that. If you can transition that to subsequent targets, that's great. Tries to do it using the W for the chase down, but the Rise has the eternal binding of Riot's magic. But now they can push on down with the Baron, and you will see Orianna finally hit a very nice ultimate, and with that they can win. So the main takeaway from this video is for you to understand that lane impact, even with Conqueror, is very strong with Kha'Zix. That sustained damage against bruiser, bully, fighter types is basically invaluable. You can even use this rune in any team composition whatsoever and build full lethality if you wish. Pay attention to your evolves, make sure you're making the right choice. There is a link in the description that explains all of it from people way smarter at Kha'Zix than me. When you get to the mid game and the enemy team is grouping and things are becoming difficult for you to do assassin-y, buggy type things, just make sure you're getting those objectives like those dragons as Kha'Zix did. Pick the right moment to go in, know which targets you want to focus, win the fight, take the Baron, and win the game. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you were able to enjoy and learn something a little bit different about Kha'Zix that has evolved, over the past few months. Remember to, of course, like, share, and comment if you did. And of course, thank you very much if you do consider subscribing, helping us on that final road to 100,000 subs. And as always, I will see you all in the next tutorial.